I think there were some people who had challenges in connecting, and I feel that we have waited long enough for them to actually join us. To actually join the engagement. So can we begin then? My duty is just to welcome everybody to this workshop. This is the first workshop that we are having at the request of the SMM, at the request of the Eastern Cape Maritime Business Chamber. Basically, it is a workshop for the awareness and sharing a lot of information regarding the aquaculture sector. They approached the department sometime late last year, requesting information and other interventions from the department. And unfortunately, because of COVID, our chief director could not meet with them. But it was just possible to just make some quick wins in that we can do awareness virtually thanks to technology, and try and progress with some of the items that they said they need assistance on. I think it's clear that aquaculture has become a key priority for government, following the realization of the enormous potential of the sector and how aquaculture can assist towards food security, job creation, rural development, and the economy. Also, aquaculture has actually been realized as being a potential to have a potential for economic growth, and Operation Phakisa has been tasked with unlocking the potential of this of aquaculture. If you look at the main objectives of the work that we do is basically to develop a sustainable and competitive sector that contributes meaningfully to job creation, economic development, sustainable livelihood, food security, and transformation. President, I think if you heard a couple of weeks ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, President Ramaphosa highlighted the importance of small, medium, and micro enterprises in the economic reconstruction and the recovery plan for South Africa. And it's important to note that SMMEs are a big deal, because they comprise of 98% of formal business in South Africa are SMMEs. Even though they make a far smaller contribution to employment and GDP. So if you look at the department's National Development Plan for SMMEs, their target is to create at least 90% of targeted 11 million new jobs by 2030. So I think we need to pay serious attention to SMMEs and also acknowledge the role that these entities can play in the development of our economy as a country. Can I request that Mr. Imtiaz Ishmael gets ready? There are some challenges with Sipe in joining. I think she's still struggling. Sipe, are you here? Is Sipe? I don't think Sipe is here on the list of attendees. Oh, there she is. Yeah, Sipe has just joined. So if she could just start the first presentation, which will be from Sipe Gaqoti. She will be giving a basic background on aquaculture in South Africa and a couple of other aspects of that. For this discussion and the meeting, I would request that I was actually supposed to have my camera on for the introduction. For this discussion today, I would request that we have our cameras off, and when we have questions and answers, we'll have them after each presentation. There is a raise hand tool on MS Teams for you to actually raise your hand and ask a question. If you are struggling with that, you can flash your face and your hand briefly so that you are acknowledged. And feel free, relax. This is an open discussion. There is no question too big or too small. The point is to share information and to ensure that everybody has a good understanding of what is going on, because at times aquaculture is quite technical. Thank you. And Sipe, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am.
Can you project, please, your presentation? Let me stop sharing mine. We will have all the presentations available after the engagement today, and also a recording of the discussions can be requested.
Are you able to see?
We can see, but we're not on the first slide. You have to actually go to make it a slideshow presentation and go to the first slide. It takes some time for it to actually appear. And now you're on slide 21 of 39. Are you winning, Sipe?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
But are you on your first slide? There we go.
All right.
Thank you, colleagues. Let me reintroduce again. Sipeha Koti will be dealing with aquaculture, just the basics and some background as a foundation to our further discussions. Thanks, Sipe. You can take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this aquaculture workshop. I will be dealing with aquaculture in South Africa, as my colleague Simasa has already mentioned. So my presentation will focus on the aquaculture in South Africa, definitions, distribution of the species, And in terms of species farmed in South Africa, I'll also go into detail. Also, we will focus on the different sectors in South Africa and what are some of the technical aspects of aquaculture. So, what is aquaculture? Majority of the people, I've just from basically going around and trying to figure out for myself, most people don't know what aquaculture is. And you know, when you ask them what is aquaculture, it's like this the first time that they actually hearing about aquaculture. So this workshop will actually assist us in terms of now letting people know what is aquaculture and what is the sector about. So aquaculture, basically, it is the farming of aquatic organisms. So this includes your fish, your mollusks, your crustaceans, your seaweeds, in a controlled environment for all or part of their life cycle. So this is done by typically enhancing production through good husbandry measures, selective breeding programs, feeding, and regular stocking, grading, and protection from predators. So in terms of aquaculture, its status in South Africa, we have two sectors, which is the marine and your freshwater aquaculture sector. And in terms of production, marine aquaculture contributes the most in terms of aquaculture production in South Africa. I will go into detail in terms of the volumes produced and the species, the different species cultured in the freshwater and the marine aquaculture sector. So the marine aquaculture sector, the species that are currently cultured will include your abalone, your mussels, your dusky carp, and seaweed. The freshwater sector, the species cultured include your Mozambique tilapia, your catfish, marine crayfish, common carp, rainbow trout. In terms of the distribution of the marine and the freshwater species in South Africa, majority of the farms are the freshwater farms, and they are farmed all over in terms of the different provinces. And then in marine aquaculture species, they are mostly along the coast, as they will use your marine water in terms of culturing the marine species. The total production recorded in South Africa, these are the 2017 figures, as they are the most recent figures that the department has published. So we have your different species, which are your marine and your freshwater. So in terms of abalone, the total production in 2017 was 1,276, with the Eastern Cape contributing 136.4 tons. With your finfish, it was 115.5 tons, and then Eastern Cape contributed 83.5. Then your mussels, it was 2,083 tons for the year 2017. So in terms of your oysters, it was the oyster was 432 tons. The freshwater sector also, we had your tilapia, trout, catfish, marine, and carp, and your koi carp. Then the total for the freshwater was 1,680 tons. The total production for the year was 5,588 tons for that year. So in terms of the farms, the total number of farms recorded, the freshwater farms, we had 38. The marine farms, we had 38 farms in 2017. And in terms of your freshwater farms, we had 172 tons. So now I'm going to go into the marine aquaculture sector, which are the marine mussel industry. So as mentioned, the production volumes for the sector was 2,083 tons, represented by a total of 10 farms. The culture species was your Mediterranean mussels, and the indigenous black mussel. Majority of the farms are situated in Saldanha Bay, which is in the Western Cape, and the culture systems, you have your long lines or your raft systems. So this image just shows you the barge, which is used to grade mussels and then reset back into the ocean, and this is just the boat which they use in terms of harvesting. So these are the workers, they're working on grading your mussel. So then also here, this is the technology that is being used. They are using these are your long lines, and then you'll have your ropes hanging, and this is where your mussels will attach. Then these are your mussels that have already been processed. Abalone industry. The culture species is your abalone, which is a Heliotis media. The production volume of 1,276 tons. There were 18 farms operational in 2017, and the culture system that they use, these farms are usually land-based systems, and they use your flow-through systems. So these are the images of the technology that are being used. So these are your concrete tanks, and then they house the baskets in which your abalone are placed. The oyster industry contributed 432 tons with 6 farms operational, and then the culture species is your Crassistre, and the systems that are used, culture system that is used is your long line, and then they have mesh bags that are attached that house your oysters. These are the mesh bags that are attached to your ropes. These are just images showing us the oysters. Then in terms of finfish industry, this is an emerging industry, and it is the smallest contributor in terms of total production. It's comprised of 5 farms, and the indigenous species farmed is your duck's ecob. So these are cultured using recirculating systems, pond culture systems, as well as cage culture systems. So in terms of your recirculating system, it's usually whereby a series of tanks, culture provides an alternative to outdoor ponds or cage culture. Then they will be using water continuously, which is recirculated within the system. The water is monitored to maintain optimal conditions throughout the year, and the water is treated so that it gets rid of any harmful chemicals or products, and to ensure that the water quality, optimal water quality. Then also we have your ponds. So then you can have your earthen or concrete ponds, and this involves the containment of aquatic organisms, which then are fed and protected against natural predators until they reach market size, and then they can be harvested. And then also you have your cages The cages are placed in either in oceans, and then you will have them protected against predators, and then until they reach marketable size, whereby they are harvested. This is an image showing your dusky carp. This is the recirculating aquaculture system. These are your earthen ponds. Now we go into the freshwater aquaculture sector. There we have your trout industry. There are two culture species, which are your brown and your rainbow trout. The production volumes for trout was 1,249.8 tons with a total of 42 tons. So the culture system was your land-based raceways, and the raceways are long, narrow canals that are made of concrete, and they have inlets from the river and then outlets through it. A treatment plant treats the water, which is then released back into the rivers. Tilapia industry has two major species that are cultured. That is the Mozambique and your Nile tilapia. In terms of production, you have for the production of 402 tons with a total of 81 farms. These are farmed in land-based earthen ponds. Then you have the marine crayfish industry. These species is exotic to South Africa, and it only has a production of 4 tons. The current marine crayfish farm is located in the Eastern Cape, and they are cultured in ponds. So these are the ponds that are used to culture the marine. The catfish industry. Catfish subsector is based on the indigenous species, which is the African shark-tooth catfish, and there are 15 farms that were recorded in South Africa in 2017. It contributed to a total of 3.3 tons. They are cultured in ponds as well. So now we'll go into, now that we've gone into the different species cultured in South Africa, now you would then say, okay, I want to then now start up a farm, or I'm interested in this industry and I would like to start up my own facility. So where do I start? What are some of the things that I must look into then that would allow me to actually be part of the industry or the sector? So key steps to consider when establishing an aquaculture farm. So basically you have to come up with a concept. With any business or with any idea or venture that you want to go into, you'd have to first have a concept in mind as to what exactly it is that you want to do. So the concept actually is where you then conduct your research, on the species, on the technology, and on the markets. So there you would actually then determine, okay, so what is my reason for starting up this farm? What is my reason for starting up this farm? Which species am I looking into? What scales am I looking into? Do I have a site? Is the site already available? Will I be leasing the site? If it's just a site that I've identified, who is the owner? Then you'd go into, okay, so what species also do I want to culture? Is that species suitable for my area? And then you'd go into what are the general characteristics of or biological characteristics of the species. Where is it distributed? what are its growth rates naturally, and then is the species able to be cultured in South Africa. Also, then you'd look into what technology is it that I will use in order for me to farm. What are the designs and production systems that are used to culture the species? Then you'd also consider who's going to be managing this facility. Will you have any partnerships with anyone? You'd go into that. So basically, this is where you go into detail on different aspects and do your research before you even start up before you even start up the farm. If you haven't registered or you don't have a company, you'd have to register one, a legal entity, that will be the one that you'll be the entity that would be the aquaculture facility. Once you have the concepts and you've registered your company, then now you'd want to formalize it and actually draft your business plan. So this business plan is you'll use it when you are approaching investors, when you're applying for funding. It can be funding in terms of government or loans, and the business plan must have the fundamental purpose for your business, and it will have all the information that you have gathered when you are actually coming up with your concept. So it will have your background, a description of your business, all the important information that was gathered during the time when you were conceptualizing your business. But now it's further down the line when you've actually identified the species, you know exactly what you're going to do. So then you will then put it in the form of a formal business plan. So your business plan will also have then the funding requirements. So here you'd also identify whether or not will you need funding, or do you have funding already, and you will actually go into detail as to how much is required for your operation, and that will include your operational costs as well as your capex. And it will also include then what authorization your farm will actually need, the permits that will be required, if any water extraction permits will be required, processing permits. Then you would include all of that in your business plan. So also it will include the personnel. So what staff will be required to run this facility? You would explain the background, their experience in the field, and what their functions or roles will be within the aquaculture facility. As mentioned, then you will the business plan will then is the one that you use mostly to go approaching these financial institutions. So here you would actually go out if you require funding and seek funding to start up the actual aquaculture facility. So there will be a presentation, I think next week, that will go into detail on the financial institutions that are available for aquaculture facilities. So in terms of infrastructure and inputs, one would have to have land, I think land or sea space. So before you can even start, you must have land and or sea space that is available. If you are a land-based facility, you then would have to find out if there's water available nearby, and what is it that will be required? Will you be requiring any specific permits for that water resource? Also, in terms of accessibility to the sites, is the site accessible? So you must have access roads as well. And in terms of electricity, and then also in terms of your inputs, such as this actual seed or your juveniles or fish. So those are some of the inputs you also have to consider. Also considering that the species will need to be fed, so you have to consider where the access of feed as well. There are different types of operations that one can start up. And they are your tertiary, primary, secondary. So in terms of primary operations, you can operate as a hatchery, a nursery, or a grow-out facility. Also, you can then, in terms of secondary operations, you can operate as a processing facility, or aquaculture. Tertiary operations can be your aquaculture feed companies or offer vet service or offer vet services. So when you actually determine that you want to start up an aquaculture farm, you have to also then look into what type of facility do I want to operate as. Do I want to operate as a hatchery, a nursery, or a grow out? And then that will actually be they fit into your business plan. So your business plan will be aligned on what type of facility that you want to operate as. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. If you have questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you for that, Siphe. That's a lot of information to look at and to actually consider. So we come to our question and answer part of the first presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and ask your question. Somebody has asked me if they can ask questions in Xhosa. I have said yes. I will translate and try and create some understanding. So the floor is yours. You okay? I see one hand is up. Mr. Kashani, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the good presentation. I'd like to ask one question. Do you guys think we have future for aquaculture in South Africa? If yes, how are we planning to grow or develop the sector? Thank you.
Siphe, I think that question is posed to all of us, but you can take the floor and then the other colleagues can then expand and add. This is a collaborative approach.
Yes, there is a future for aquaculture in South Africa, as the sector it's a growing sector. I think there's currently more and more interest in people wanting to participate in the sector. So yes, there's space available for people to join it, and because of the decline in the wild stock, it is important that aquaculture is taken up and people actually become part of the sector. I would give the floor to my colleagues to add as well.
Thanks, Vipe. I will also add that we are at an infancy, rather small stage of aquaculture right now. And we've noted that there are several barriers that are there within the sector, and we're trying to tackle and deal with these barriers through various interventions, be they legislative. We've got Operation Phakisa happening as well. That is a process that is ongoing and developing and progressing quite well. There are challenges, particularly when we look at small and medium micro enterprises, and these are the access challenges that happen with other businesses as well. So there are interventions that we are trying in place. And I think it's also worthwhile to have engagements and to present these issues to the department so that they are noted and appropriate actions can be taken. Thank you. Can I request that the next presenter get ready in terms of projecting their presentations during the question and answer sessions? I have noted the next presenter, Mr. Tebogo Matosa, and also we will share all of these presentations at the end of the day. Mr. Matosa, the floor is yours.
Good day, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to ask in regard to what kind of support is there, especially for maybe individuals that are interested and have done research into this and have identified how they would want to run it, but then they just don't have the capital, they don't have a basis to maybe put their fish farms on, what kind of support is available?
Can you please repeat your question? When you started, we didn't get the beginning.
Okay, no, my question is, what kind of a support is available for individuals like myself who are interested but have never really worked in the industry but have done extensive research on it, but then we just like startups and we know what we want, how to execute it, but then we need support. Hello.
Colleagues, you've heard the question. Sipe?
In terms of support, there's various support mechanisms that we provide. I have in my directorate, which I'm under the Directorate Aquaculture Technical Services, we have variety of extension services that we provide to interested individuals who are interested in starting up into the sector. So what we do offer in terms of support, we assist in terms of reviewing of your business plan. So if you have a business plan that is already in place, we assist in terms of reviewing your business plan. But if you don't have a business plan in place, we do advise that individuals contact departments such as CEDA, who are the ones who are responsible in terms of assisting with business plan development. So if you don't have one in place, you can just contact, we'll be able to share the details for CEDA, and they can assist in terms of developing a business plan. But additional to assisting with reviewing of your business plan, once you have a business plan or a concept, firstly, just to say, okay, I want to enter into the sector, I've identified land or sea space, we do provide site assessments where we go out into your site and assess whether or not it is actually suitable for the aquaculture activity that you are planning. Also, if you're still really in your infancy stage and you have not yet got an understanding of what it is you want to do, we do provide advice to clients. So depending on where you wanna start your facility or set up your facility, then we can advise on the suitable species that can be cultured in your area, and we can provide you with a variety of information. We have the feasibility studies that are used in order for you to determine whether or not your business will be feasible or not. So we usually share that with clients so that they can actually use it to see if the idea that the plans that I have or the species that they have identified, is it actually going to be viable or not? So those are some of the support that we provide within my directorate. There are other directorates that I know Operation Phakisa. If there is, I'm not sure if the colleagues from Phakisa are available, but there's also Operation Phakisa. They also provide assistance if you want to be part of Operation Phakisa. I'll give the floor to my other colleagues as well.
And just to respond on the issue of funding, a lot of support is provided in terms of supporting you and guiding you towards entities that can provide full funding for your project. Unfortunately, as a department, we do not disburse any funds. We are not a funding institution, but we do assist and have an incentive scheme in collaboration with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, but we do not have our own funding. Ponzo, you want to add in, colleague?
Yes, Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think to add to what Sipe just alluded to, I would like to indicate that there's also trainings that can be offered, that when people want to start their establishments, it's most times wise that you start with a training, because I understand people do researches and understand and increase their interest in starting an aquaculture, but aquaculture is one of the most technical operation. So when you do your training, at least you have a better understanding to what your research outcomes were. And again, we also advise that people can do exposure. For example, you can go to training and then you tend to be demonstrated various production systems that you can choose from based on the concept of what you want to do. But when you do exposure, maybe visiting various farms in your province, or if you feel like you can go outside your province, so that we have a better understanding, there are various technicalities that one needs to understand before you can really make a choice to say, okay, I'm going to utilize a RAS system for my operation. But how will you implement your RAS system? So it's most times important that you understand the various aspects. And again, in terms of those exposures, people can also contact their provincial coordinators. We have people in various provinces. I know other provinces, they don't have expertise, but some provinces, there are people there. You can even contact them to get more information. How do you get your land? How do you get your permits, and so on, especially in terms of freshwater, because I understand that the legislative processes in terms of marine and freshwater, they tend to differ. So if they engage provincial people, they can also get a better understanding there. And again, we have, I think SCP already indicated, we have various documentations that we can share with colleagues. She talked to the issue of us assisting in terms of making inputs to your business plan or your concept. If you haven't even started with your business plan, we have a guideline that we can share with you to indicate that for you to put together a business plan, you need to look into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues, and then you can send it back to us, and then we can make inputs, technical inputs, to assist you to take into the right direction. Again, Chair, you also mentioned the issue of assist in terms of financials, but with other departments, your DTIs and so on. Even the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, there's CASP. I know some people, they struggle because for you to access your CASP to assist with your infrastructure, as well as Ilimalitima to assist with your production inputs, you need to start first with your district. You submit your business plan to the district, and then if the district made assessments and think that your business plan can be moved to the next level, which is the provincial engagement, from which the province now will be coming to the National Department of Agriculture to present your projects, and there you can get financial support for your infrastructure as well as production inputs. And I think within CASP financing your training is also included there. So that information we can always share even at the later stage. Maybe we can engage directly with, is it in Tatitao? The one that just asked questions. Yes, so we can always make a contact so that we give more information that regard. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Thanks, Conso. Yes, Tebogo, you have can you pose your next question? Are you seeking clarity or you want to pose the next question?
It's basically to say, are they going to share that information on this platform?
Yes, we will share all information after this meeting. We will, or even later, by the latest tomorrow, the contact details as well as the presentations and other important information. There was a lady who had her hand up. Her name is Tamia, I think, and I don't know what happened to Tamia. After Tamia, are you around?
Yes.
Okay, after Tamia, it's going to be Mr. Unati. Thanks, Tamia. Take the floor.
My question was basically also on funding, but I got the clarity a little bit there. The other question that I have was in terms of the training. So if you have started up with the
Ms. Hendricks, we've lost you. Hello? Okay, we can proceed to the next person. We'll give her a chance after she connects. Unati, you can take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this informative session. And I think the information that is being shared is very valuable. Some of the concerns that I was going to raise earlier on, I think they have been responded to by sponsor, and I think there's a direction. But then what I would like to maybe propose would be probably maybe after the next presentation, because you had raised something that you spoke of engaging with DTI and also engaging with SEDA and them, where maybe because you had said in the response, I think it was Usipe in her response saying, when Mr. Kachane asked if do we see a future, with the aquaculture, if we are really serious about this, maybe we would then need to have those intergovernmental arrangements where, in the spirit of what is supposed to be Operation Phakisa, especially in this day and time, where with those governmental relations to craft programs that are directed to the agency of, if you refer one to SEDA, SEDA may not see the agency of this, may take it through the normal process, whereas one already has got, things that they've already laid up. So maybe that will be the discussion towards at the end, or maybe after the next week's session, to see how do we craft something that will talk to, a speedily response to some of these things. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, thanks, Unati. I think in the approach that, excuse me, we've taken as a department, we have forums that are interdepartmental and that tackle some of the challenges that the industry is faced with. We've got an intergovernmental authorization committee and also other intergovernmental forums where we look at collaborative approaches to solving problems as well as streamlining the approval process. So that is in place. However, we do also intervene and try and escalate on behalf of a stakeholder when they have challenges in getting solutions. So there are interventions in place, and we do sort of act as a mediator, not a mediator, but a facilitator for our stakeholders as well. Tamia, you had a question?
Sorry, the network got interrupted. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. I was going to ask in terms of the training when Poncho, I think it was Poncho, spoke about the training. Where does one go in terms of wanting training in the aquaculture industry, specifically in fish farming?
Can I come in, Chair?
Yes, you can go for it, May.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tamia, for the question. In terms of training, we have a training center in the Free State in Garibdam, where the training is offered for free. However, at the moment, due to COVID circumstances that the country is facing, training was put on hold, but we are engaging with the team next week on Wednesday. So there's a plan for March, but our outcomes of next week's meeting will determine if the training is continuing or not. But the plan has been put together so that the dates can be circulated to interested candidates. So the training that is happening there under normal circumstances, like I said, it takes 5 days, it's for free. They do theory training as well as practicals for everybody. But the training there is only focused on freshwater space. It does not include marine. And again, in terms of training, there are other people who are conducting training. I know in the Eastern Cape, there's aquaculture innovations, but these ones you need to engage with the relevant service provider so that they can quote you and advise on how much is the training and so on. So the one that's facilitated by government is the one in Garib where you don't pay. But I understand that you need to travel yourself to the training center, and to a certain point you might have to find yourself accommodation because they are still finalizing maintenance in their apartment where they put the trainees in. So maybe if you want to go, we can engage next week so that I can already indicate that the training will resume or not. But for March, the planned date for training is the 22nd to 26th of March. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ponso. And the next question from SMME. There was a hand up from SMME.
I think that's a mistake. That's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Your name, sir?
It's Timothy Jacobs, Simasa.
Okay.
How are you?
Hi, Tim.
How are you?
Well, thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. It's greatly appreciated. I just got 2 questions. The one is government is advertising land for farms. Is there a similar process for those that wants to go into aquaculture, where the farm set aside for that specific purpose with enough water access? That's the one question. The other question the gentleman has somehow clarified it previously on the cedar business plan thing. I think the challenge with cedar is the turnaround time to get things going, because sometimes you can wait up to 6 months before your application has been approved for business plan assistance. And just lastly, is there any sort of idea if the abalone ranching would still be advertised by the department going forward, Simasa? That's basically the questions that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. I will deal with the issue. Ponso, can you tackle the issue of government access farms and leases?
Chair, I'm gonna try, but I'm not confident that the response will be enough for Ndate Timothy. But because I know to a certain point that the provinces are the ones that are dealing with the issues of land. But I know when we direct people to departments of agriculture in provinces, they also do further referrals to their clients, and clients will come back to say, no, we've been sent from one pillar to another. But the issues of land, to a certain point, the clients needs to be in engagement with the authority at provincial level. So I'm not quite sure in terms of the advertisement that Timothy is referring to.
And also from my side, I don't have a lot of information with regards to I know leases and offered by the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development had actually been advertised, and these were for farming land. And I do not know whether there was an apportionment for aquaculture land, but what I have had noted was that it was predominantly farming land, inland areas. So I think it is something that we can look at as homework from our side. I'm aware of CEDA and the challenges with regards to turnaround times, but we have to be also aware that they are servicing a lot of people, and a lot of people, there are lots of new entrants wanting to move into the space of the small business space. We do offer some level of looking at your business plan and advising on the business plan internally within the department. So perhaps you can also use that service, but it is difficult to actually draft for you, but we review what has been presented. On the issue of ranching areas, we have been inundated as a department for requests for new ranching sites, and that is something that is being taken into consideration. There are people who have applied for ranching in areas that do not fall within the current scope, and it is a very tedious and legalistic process. And because there's risk assessments that need to be done and other studies prior to even engaging in ranching, and then they also have to advertise, first request the minister for comments, public participation, where other people can also say that we want the same area that another applicant has identified. And also, when the application is done now for ranching, that person will have to compete. It becomes an open process. So it's very difficult for one person to then say, identify and want to start ranching. We are trying to come up with a streamlined process, because this current process that is being followed, it is extremely tedious and expensive as well. But you are noted. I know we've received a lot of requests for ranching in new areas. Thanks. Can we take the next person for questions, or Paula, and then Mr. Kashane, and the second last bite from Tebucho, and then we'll move on. Can we be brief, colleagues and stakeholders, as much as possible?
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the initiative to bring all this information to the people. So one thing I would like to request, maybe for someone like me who just recently learned about aquaculture and is interested in being one of the stakeholders in this country, is it possible maybe to have a central location with all the information in terms of how does the entire process start? Because what we have discovered is that when we go to some of the departments, they don't necessarily have all the information because it's something that is new. So I will propose that maybe there is a central location in terms of website or whatever that can have all the information, for instance, the locations for the government training, that would be in Kharib, so that we can publish it online so that we can have easy access and get all the information from that central location. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to do that, provide you with all the documents and guidelines and requirements on how to get started. After this meeting, I will share an email address as well. So emailed contacts and all of that information. Yeah, you are noted. Next, I think I said Morena is next, and then Mr. Tebucho.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to comment on the issue of the land. The challenge we have is the provincial government, they do advertise land or farms, to the people who wish to farm. However, those lands, they will be for poultry or for beef cattle farming or for crops. And there is no specific farm in South Africa that I know of fish farming. And it is so difficult, for our farmers to get access to those advertised land. And we raised the issue as the industry to the minister to say that, we are excluded in these processes. And I think the challenge is aquaculture in South Africa, it doesn't have a specific department or rather the ministry. So we don't get, enough attention that we require as a sector. For instance, aquaculture on a national level has been moved from agriculture to environment, and in my knowledge, the environment is more of a regulatory department than developmental department. So I think we'll have serious challenges in developing the sector in South Africa because we don't have a specific ministry so that the sector can get required attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Morena, for that. Ponso, would you like to come in?
Okay. Kashan, I think we have previously been in engagement or received this kind of concern from other stakeholders, and there was an initiative from the branch fisheries management, or rather the department at large, Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, to say that the concerns that the stakeholders have raised in terms of the issue of DEF being more of a regulatory department than a developmental department. So there was an initiative or an engagement between our minister and the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development to say that some of the initiatives or developmental initiatives that have been ongoing when the branch was still reporting in agriculture to continue. Hence, I indicated that your CASP funding and Ilimalizima funding, which are within Department of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform, we are still participating on those panels where aquaculture is still part of. Therefore, the concerns or the benefits that aquaculture was having within agriculture, we are still in contact with agriculture, whereby you don't have to be scared that you won't be benefiting those things as going forward. We're still linking with them, the Directorate of Sector Education and Training, in terms of other trainings where livestock trainings are happening. We also want them to assist us in terms of training for aquaculture, particularly your international trainings and so on that we have been offering in the past. The CASP funding as well, they are still happening. So even the monitoring that we are doing, sometimes more technically, so when we are providing technical assessments, we are also still in contact with other directorates within Department of Agriculture. So this is not the first engagement where this concern is being highlighted. So what I'm saying in short is that we have received that concern before and are taking into consideration that we at our level we cannot change the fact that we are within DEF, and as you indicated that it's more of regulatory, but the services that the sector needs, we are trying our best that we continue providing those services. Thanks, Chair.
So I'm just having problems allowing people in from the lobby. It appears that some people are trying to join and their names are not popping up on my side, unfortunately. So I'm dealing with that as well. Thanks, Ponso. I think you've adequately dealt with that question. Can we take a last bite from Tebucho and then we move on?
Thanks, Chair. I've been covered.
Hello?
Hi, Chair. I've been covered by Morena in the previous speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Morena. Moving on to our next presentation. Imtiaz, can you take the floor, please?
Okay, thank you, Zimasa. Good morning, everyone. I'm Imtiaz Ismail. I work in the Director Sustainable Aquaculture Management Unit at DEF. I'll be giving a presentation on aquaculture authorization requirements in South Africa. Okay, so our role at DEF is in the regulation of the marine aquaculture sector. Sorry, there's a bit of noise in the background. Okay. I think someone's mic is on. Okay,
can everybody try and mute their mics, please? I also hear it. Can you mute your mics, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We regulate the marine aquaculture sector through the implementation of the Marine Living Resources Act. Also, we grant marine aquaculture rights and permits to engage in marine aquaculture under the Marine Living Resources Act. So a marine aquaculture right is valid for 15 years. And in order to exercise a right, you apply for the relevant permit, which is valid for 12 months. We also grant exemptions for marine aquaculture fish processing and also for the local sale of undersized cultured abalone. We also grant rights for abalone ranching, which is currently a 10-year pilot project. As was discussed earlier, the legislation is currently fragmented, so freshwater is currently managed and regulated on national, provincial, local level. But currently, the department is in the process of developing the aquaculture bill. So this will in future allow for the issuing of licenses for both freshwater and marine aquaculture. And this will also allow for the streamlining of authorizations to the Intergovernmental Authorization Committee. So it will sort of be like a one-stop shop. This will also allow for the promoting of transformation in the sector for historically disadvantaged individuals. And there is a guideline document available on the guide to authorization requirements and a legal guide for aquaculture sector in South Africa, which goes into more detail of what will be discussed in the presentation, and these documents can be made available after the workshop. Okay, so the turnaround time for a marine aquaculture right is 20 to 40 working days. So, and the cost of the right is 9,123. So you would submit an application to our department, branch fisheries, to our customer service center. You pay the application fee. So the application is only submitted once all the requirements are met, which I will go through. So the application is screened and processed at our Directorate Sustainable Aquaculture Management. Okay, once it's screened, it's assessed according to environmental, socioeconomic, and economic assessment was also done. Then it's taken forward to a Marine Aquaculture Working Group for inputs. So the MOG, Marine Aquaculture Working Group, we meet on an ad hoc basis, and the MOG will make recommendations to the delegated authority on the outcome of the application. So the delegated authority, Chief Director, Aquaculture and Economic Development, will make a decision on whether to approve the right, and then the rights letter is granted with a record of decision, or whether or the MOG will make recommendations to the applicant. For example, there's outstanding documentation. I don't think we've declined any marine aquaculture rights application thus far. In most cases, we make recommendations to the applicant. Okay, so in terms of the requirements, you need to complete the application form correctly and completely. You need to submit your ID documentation, proof of registration of your company. You need to attach a valid tax clearance, and very importantly, your business plan, as was discussed in the previous presentation. So in your business plan, you're going to outline your proposed production, your operational plan, your shareholding structure, your marketing plan, your SWOT analysis, and so forth. Also, you're going to include a site map for your proposed site, and you need to have a valid lease agreement or title deed for your site, depending on whether it's a land-based or sea-based site. Okay. Very importantly, for all marine aquaculture rights applications, we request a detailed environmental management program. So this is normally done by an environmental assessment practitioner or consultant. So just to explain to you, environmental management program basically outlines what sort of mitigation measures you're going to be putting in place. For example, to prevent any escaped or farm animals. How will you manage the environmental impact of waste from uneaten feed or fish waste, for example, entering the environment? Also, will you be using antibiotics in your feed? How will you protect your fish from predators without endangering or harming the environment? Okay, so there are other environmental approvals that has to be met. So first of all, in terms of the National Environmental Management Act, there are environmental impact assessment regulations. So the relevant provincial department will advise whether you require a basic assessment or full scoping EIA, and that normally accompanies an environmental management program. So this is when you require environmental authorization. So a basic assessment will take up to 197 days, and a full EIA could take up to 300 days. Okay, if you don't require environmental authorization, the relevant authority will issue with a not listed EI letter. So we require proof of either or. Okay, if you are a land-based facility, in terms of the Integrated Coastal Management Act, you will need to submit an application for coastal waters discharge permit. So for example, in an abalone farm, most of the abalone farms currently have coastal waters discharge permits, but the relevant department, DF Oceans and Coast, are currently working on having a general discharge authorization for the sector. Okay, in terms of the National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act, there are alien invasive species regulations with species lists. So certain species are restricted or prohibited. So if it's a restricted species, you could possibly apply for a permit, but you'll need to have a consultant do a biodiversity risk assessment, and that process has to be followed, and the permit has to be issued before you can submit your application for the right. They also threaten and protected species regulations. So similarly, if it's a listed species, either vulnerable or protected or critically endangered, you obviously need to do the relevant risk assessment. So that's administered by the provincial authority. Okay. Then there's also municipal bylaws that you need to comply with. So land use planning is a provincial mandate. So provincial authorities administer the Conservation of Agricultural Resources Act. So local municipalities administer and apply the municipal bylaws that determine the zoning and land use planning. So for an aquaculture activity, the land has to be zoned adequately for aquaculture, agriculture, or industrial use. Okay, so once you've obtained the marine aquaculture right, then you can start applying for your marine aquaculture permit. So the main permit will be your permit to engage, which is either integrated grow-out permit or integrated hatchery permit, depending on whether you're doing a grow-out and hatchery or grow-out or a hatchery. There are also other permits that will be required for your operation. For example, you might need a transport permit, or you might need a fish processing establishment permit. If you are operating a fish processing establishment, you might need a permit to export your product, or maybe to export fingerlings. So that's something you will apply for after you've obtained the right. With regards to import and export permits, you don't necessarily have to be a right holder to apply for one. You can be a third party, like a retailer or wholesaler, or for example, with marine ornamentals. There's a lot of import permits we issue for the marine ornamental sector, so they're not necessarily right holders. So the turnaround time is 4 to 7 working days. So the application is submitted to a customer service center with payment, and then the application is screened and verified and then approved by the delegated authority, which is our deputy director, and then is issued to through our customer service center within 7 working days. In terms of freshwater aquaculture, following the discussion earlier, it's managed or administered by the provincial authorities. So each province has its own administration process. So this is different legislation and ordinances. So for example, in the Western Cape, in order to farm with trout, you'd approach Cape Nature, and you apply for a relevant permit either to import, export, transport, or stock trout or farm with trout. So these permits are all valid for 12 months, and they're subject to a compliance audit. They're similar with the marine aquaculture approvals. There's also EIA regulations you need to comply with in freshwater. There's AIS and TOPS regulations. There's also the municipal bylaws. But what's different is that you obviously won't need a coastal waters discharge permit, but in this case, you'll need to comply with the National Water Act. So you either need a general authorization, which could take up to 30 days, or water use license, which would take up to 300 days. So that depends on what activity you're doing. So in most cases, the water use license, you might be abstracting water from a nearby river, diverting the water course, or storing water on site. So the relevant department of Human Settlements and Water and Sanitation will be able to process and advise your application. In most cases, the use of municipal water is Schedule 1 use, so that doesn't necessarily require a water use license or general authorization. Yeah, I just have a short video to play on abalone ranching. Okay, so this is an abalone ranching operation in the Eastern Cape. For those who don't know, abalone ranching is basically the release of farmed abalone spat or seed into the natural environment. And then the abalone basically, they will grow out in the natural habitat in the allocated concession area, and then they will be harvested once they reach market size. So it's very important. It's a highly technical operation. Also very important that a baseline survey is done prior to the operation and relevant risk assessments is done to determine whether the operation will be feasible, is a habitat suitable for the abalone to grow. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration when choosing a site for abalone ranching. As you can see, the abalone, they move around a lot once they've been seeded. So that's something you also need to take into consideration. Okay, so the requirements for abalone ranching. Okay, previously there was an application process in 2011 where we advertised concession areas to apply for in the Northern Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape. So currently the Western Cape concession areas are earmarked for future community-based pilot projects. However, we've allocated all the concessions, 3 in the Eastern Cape and 4 in the Northern Cape. So because due to all the ranching areas being allocated, the only option would be to apply for ministerial approval to undertake ranching. So as Master said, this is a lengthy process. So once you've identified a site, you have to submit a proposal that meets the exclusionary criteria, which is outlined in the guidelines for abalone ranching, which can also be made available after this presentation. So the site that you identify has to have minimal conflict with high biodiversity areas, also minimal conflict with existing fisheries. For example, there might be crayfish, small-scale crayfishing sector in the area which might have conflict with abalone ranching, or there might be wild abalone ranching sector in the area, also minimal conflict with local communities. So as was discussed earlier, you need to undertake an environmental risk assessment. So an environmental assessment practitioner will obviously be hired to do that. So this is a lengthy process. So we have to obtain ministerial approval and undergo a public participation process. So once this is completed, in order to have the process to be legally fair, it will then, the site or concession area, once ministerial approval is granted, will be advertised for other applicants to apply. So there's 2 phases to the application process. Phase one involves the submission of the application form with all the relevant documentation and which meets the applicable exclusionary criteria. So the exclusionary criteria, one would be compliance. So the applicant must basically not have any previous contravention with the Marine Living Resources Act, or have a right cancelled, suspended, or revoked, or any assets seized under the MLRA. If that's the case, the application will be declined unless an admission of guilt fine is paid. Also, the applicant needs to demonstrate access to finance in order to implement the project. So they need to have the relevant capital and funding in place, and that will be covered in your proposal. You also need to attach a supply agreement with a hatchery. For example, a nearby abalone farm that is willing to supply with spat and have a supply agreement in place. And you also need to demonstrate participation of HTIs in the marine aquaculture sector. So this is a national priority, and also need to require that the applicant is compliant with the Employment Equity Act. So you need to submit proof of the transformation profile of the company. Okay, once the phase 1 process is successful, the applicant can then proceed to phase 2. So phase 2 is a public participation process and submission of a full proposal. So the proposal will be evaluated against the balancing criteria outlined in the guidelines for abalone ranching. So these balancing criteria include equity and job creation. So you need to indicate that sufficient or significant amount of jobs will be created per tonnage harvested, and that coastal communities will be the primary beneficiaries. Also, as mentioned, it's a very technical operation, so it has to be a well-rounded technical capacity. For example, you need to have qualified divers, you need to have skippers, you need to have people that have knowledge of the marine aquaculture sector, particularly abalone farming. Also, regards to future investments in the project, you need to demonstrate that you will be investing in the project not only in fixed assets such as your infrastructure, but also what sort of research will be done, because you can't just release your abalone and expect them to be fine. You need to do regular sampling, check growth rates, do stock assessments. You need to have that research component as part of your project profile. So this sort of investment starts at the seeding process to the harvesting, to the processing and sale on the market. As was discussed earlier, environmental considerations is also very important. So an environmental risk assessment will have to be completed or conducted. Also, an environmental monitoring plan, which will obviously deal with monitoring environmental impacts and so on. Also, a baseline survey is normally done to determine whether the site is suitable for ranching and the habitat is suitable. Okay, so I think I've ended my presentation, but what I'll do, I have a video that I want to play of a sea cage trout farm in Saldanha Bay. The reason I chose this video is because it's got a freshwater component where they get their fingerlings or smolts from a hatchery in Franschhoek, and they transfer the animals to the cages in Saldanha Bay.
Is this video supposed not to have audio?
Can you not hear?
Nothing coming through.
Okay, I think maybe because I have my earphones on.
Okay. It's okay, just try and continue.
It's not playing with sounds, Master.
Okay, just continue with it as is. I can't see the video, Imtiaz. I see a different screen now. Can everybody see a video?
No.
Okay, can you see now?
No, I think you're not projecting the presentation.
Yeah, I can see now.
Yes.
Okay.
Your soundless video. Thanks.
Can you hear now?
There's nothing, Imtiaz. I think it's a settings or the way it was uploaded. I don't know. I'm not a technology specialist.
Okay.
But if you could wait silent, just explain what's going on.
Okay. But should you can't hear anything now?
Nothing, Puti.
Oh, okay. So this is the hatchery in Franschhoek. So basically, they have specialized broodstock farms that produce the ova and trout eggs, and they grow them to about 10 grams to about 10 centimeters. And then they transport them live to the grout facility in Saldanha Bay. So they grow them out to about 2 kilo size at the sea-based farming operation where they're ready for harvest. So it takes about 18 months for the trout to reach market size. So they grow them out in cages at sea, and they take the regular monitoring, environmental monitoring for the cages to ensure that there's minimal environmental impact. So they also do food quality testing, food safety testing, which will be covered in the next presentation, to ensure that the product is a good quality and safe for eating. So currently, this farm is expanding in Saldanha Bay. They've undergone an environmental authorization process, or it's part of the Saldanha ADZ. So they've basically met all those environmental approvals. They also have a processing facility, which basically is operating in Franschhoek. So as you can see, they have divers as well, which forms part of the operation. So the divers will actually have to inspect the nets and also inspect the mooring systems of the cages to ensure that the cages are doing fine and there's minimal escapes. So in the next presentation, it will cover the food safety testing aspect to ensure that the product is safe for eating. Okay, so I think I'll stop there, Zamasa. So I've concluded my presentation. Sorry about the sound for the video. Okay.
Thanks, Imtiaz. I see that we forgot to schedule. Can we have 10 minutes of questions and answers very briefly, and then we'll move on to Maizole Machangaza. Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Maizole, can you get ready and upload your presentation in the meantime? Morena has a question. Morena, go for it.
Imtiaz, I'd like to find out why freshwater aquaculture in South Africa, it is not regulated like marine aquaculture. Is it because government doesn't want to promote freshwater aquaculture, or is because of other specific reasons? Thank you.
It's not that we don't want to regulate freshwater aquaculture. It's currently regulated by the different provinces. The difference is that with marine aquaculture, we have one primary legislation, whereas for aquaculture, freshwater aquaculture, there's different provinces, there's different ordinances and acts in terms of the legislation. So as I said on the one slide, we're trying to develop the aquaculture bill so that there's one core legislation where we can basically regulate both marine and freshwater aquaculture under this act or bill and issue one license for both marine and freshwater aquaculture. So we are taking steps towards streamlining this authorization process.
And to add on to IMTIAS, it's also a historical legacy issue in that first there was the Marine Living Resources Act, and aquaculture came about within the Department of, then it was Department of Environmental Affairs and Tourism. Thereafter, it was decided that in order to properly manage the development and regulate it, there was a policy required which was developed for aquaculture, and then the legislation for aquaculture was included in the Marine Living Resources Act. So the marine aspects became regulated through the MLRA. It is not that we are ignoring the freshwater sector. However, we have noted that it was regulated in a very different manner, by a fragmented manner in the provinces. So we are trying to actually deal with this as the department by the development of the aquaculture bill. Can I get the next question, please?
Can I go in the last one?
Yes.
IMTIAS, you mentioned that your directorate is focusing on a transformation to historically disadvantaged individuals. How many permits you issued to historically disadvantaged individuals, and of those permits that you have issued, if you have issued any, how many are in operation? Thank you.
Currently, the historically disadvantaged individuals play, in terms of I can advise on the marine aquaculture sector, it's a small component at this stage, mostly in the Saldanha Bay with the mussel farms. We've had quite a few startups in the Saldanha Bay, ADZ. I can't give the number of permits offhand, but I think we issued about 14 new rights for Saldanha ADZ. And most of them were from historically disadvantaged. So we're trying to promote the sector and grow the sector, kind of like to close the gap. So, but the issue we're currently facing is a lack of expertise. So most of those new startups are relying on existing farms with the technical expertise and the knowledge of the farming. So we need to sort of like create more expertise in the sector to help grow the sector.
IMTIAS, and also just to add, there is mentorship that is being done for the new farmers in the Saldanha ADZ. Approximately now, because of the influx of the farm, I think we're about 20, almost 28 or 30% Black operational farms, right holders. A lot of the farms in Saldanha are now operational and have started farming actively. Can we move on to the next presentation? Is there any other hand? I don't see anything. So can we move on to the next presentation? Mr. Machangaza, the floor is yours.
Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, everyone from the SMMEs. Thank you for welcoming me to this aquaculture awareness. My name is Maizole Machangaza. I'm from the Chief Directorate Aquaculture and Economic Development under the Directorate Sustainable Aquaculture Management. I'm under the food safety section. Basically, what I'm going to talk about during the course of my presentation, I'm going to talk about the monitoring of food safety, and I'm going to concentrate more on the marine sector, because currently we are not monitoring food safety for the freshwater sector. But we always give advices here and there when we get such queries. The main purpose of our office or the food safety section is to provide quality products to our local consumers here in South Africa, and also the international consumers if that farm is exporting the product. So as my previous colleagues have explained, we are assisted by several legislation in order to achieve this. For example, we work very closely with the National Regulator for Compulsory Specification, work very close with municipalities. And my colleague has also spoke about the species that are currently cultured in South Africa. Currently, we are monitoring abalone, Pacific oysters, and mussels. We also monitor the dusky corp farms in terms of food safety. I will explain more. I will come with more details as I go with the presentation of how we conduct this monitoring. I think my colleague has already shown you the picture of the farm. For example, in Saldanha Bay, your oysters and mussel farms will look like that. If you see my cursor there, and your abalone farm will look like that. They are land-based farms. They usually pump water from.
Sorry to disturb you. Can you make a presentation, or make it at a slide mode, presentation mode at the bottom? This is still in slide mode.
It's not slide mode, yeah.
If you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a screen that makes everything to be like a PowerPoint. Move to the down the screen. Move to the left.
Left.
You are showing us, we don't want to see the side slides.
Okay, let me start afresh this, because
you don't need to start afresh. You just need to click on the icon at the bottom. It's the third or the fourth one at the bottom of your screen in your toolbar. Bottom toolbar.
All right.
Just press F5, Maizole.
Yeah. On my computer, when I press S5, it's showing me my presentation, but with you, it's showing something else. That's why I'm starting from scratch. Is it fine now? No, it's not. Against Masa, which button do I press?
The bottom you had, or the button that you already pressed, I think it's the fourth one from the bottom.
Yes. You can see the presentation. Now I press LL. Press.
That is the button.
Is it fine now?
No. I think we can proceed for the sake of time, but it's difficult to see some of the issues, the pictures.
I don't know. Technology. Where is this? But when I press it, it's working on my end, but I don't know why it's not working on your end. Okay, I'll continue for the sake of time. I think I'm having a technical difficulty here.
Let's proceed.
Yes, I don't know what is happening because with my computer I can see that I'm presenting and
let's proceed, please proceed.
So an abalone farm, we usually pump the water from the ocean and to the farm. Most of our abalone farms are flow through, they use a flow through system. I think CP has already presented about the finfish. In order to achieve this food safety, we also work with stakeholders. We work with laboratories. I've also already mentioned NRCS. We work with food testing laboratories like SAPS, Aspirata, and Meriyux. Obviously, to achieve this, we also need to work with the farms. We also work with the municipality of the area where the farm is. For example, currently, the municipality that we engage a lot with is the Saldanha Bay municipality, Nelson Mandela Bay municipality, several municipalities that farms are located. We have to to be in touch with them. Also, we work with our fisheries compliance officers in order to ensure that the regulations are enforced. The food safety program that the department provides is one of the permit conditions, as my colleague has presented, in terms of you are required to apply for permits, you apply for rights, and there are permit conditions there. So the food safety monitoring is one of those permit conditions. So what we do as our office, we provide assurances to our local health authorities and also the NRCS, so that they are able to approve the product and say it's safe. Basically, our primary job is to monitor food safety at the growing area of the farm. Jesus, it's not even going here. This is disturbing me because I say I'm verified with slides, but okay. I was explaining this slide, but it's not changing on your screens. So which is fine. So basically, what we do, we will monitor the production area. Then we give that information to our local health authorities and NRCS so that you can get your certificate of acceptability or get your health guarantee certificate from the NRCS that your product is safe. So some of the information they require to approve the product that is safe, the product can be exported. They get that information from our office. We also, so from the previous speakers, the first speaker has introduced that this is what aquaculture is, and the other speaker said, "Oh, this is how the process you follow for authorization." So the product that you wish to farm, you want to sell it for consumption. So it is very important at the start of your project that you ensure that the environment where you're going to farm your product is safe, meaning that there is no potential contamination that can come from the environment or from the anthropogenic processes that people usually engage on. So basically, before you start selling the product, your product is ready for market, you are ready to sell the product. So we have to classify your farm as Class A, Class B, or Class C. Class A is where you can, provided that you follow all the testing requirements that I'm going to talk about more as I go, you can harvest your product directly for human consumption from your growing area. With Class B and Class C, it's where you have the product has to be relayed first basically it has to go to purification processes before you sell the product. Or with Class B, it's a short period of time, but with Class C, you will have to relay the product for 6 months, 7 months, in order for your oysters or your mussels or abalone to get rid of whatever contamination they might have in their gut or in their system. Just to give you a picture of the operations that we are currently monitoring along the coastline of South Africa. We have more bivalve farms there in the Saldanha Bay area. We have more at the west of Cape Point. We have in the Hermanus and Gansbaai area, we have abalone farms there. We have one farm in Port Elizabeth or Gqeberha. We have one farm in East London, and we have few farms, finfish farms there in Eastern Cape. Also have one farm in KZN that we currently monitor for food safety purposes. So I don't like what is happening. So the required tests, the tests that we have a monitoring program that have all the sets of tests that we require for the farm to comply with regards to testing of these potential contaminants. We monitor marine biotoxin, we monitor microbiological contamination, we monitor pesticide, polychlorinated biphenyls, drug residues, and toxin. And dioxins. Marine biotoxins. Let me explain what are marine biotoxins. Marine biotoxins are toxins that are produced by phytoplankton. In our department, we use phytoplankton, which are floating microscopic organisms that you will usually find on your water surface. We use them as an early warning for the presence of the biotoxins. So what we usually do, we will do a phytoplankton identification and enumeration, and we have a formula that we use that will tell us, okay, this is the amount of contamination that you may potentially have before we start testing the product. Just to show you the picture of species, we have those that cause paralytic shellfish toxins. We have Alexandrium species there. The species will look a bit like this. The Alexandrium species. Then we have Dinophysis species, those that cause diuretic shellfish toxins. Why, if you would consume an oyster that has been poisoned with this diuretic shellfish toxin, DSP, you would have diarrhea. If you consume a shellfish with paralytic shellfish toxin, you will have paralysis, and they are so severe you may even die if you eat a particular product that is contaminated with such toxins. With regards to ASP, we have never found the amnesic shellfish toxins. We've never found it in our waters. So we can say for now we are safe with regards to amnesic shellfish toxins. And we also have yesotoxins. So what we have done, we have divided the coastline into two. We have east of Cape Point. When we are monitoring this biotoxin and monitoring this phytoplankton, we have west of Cape Point and east of Cape Point. And if you notice on the picture, I don't know if it's clear enough to you, I have a red and a green color along the coastline, showing that there is more occurrence of biotoxins on the east of Cape Point than the west of Cape Point. So therefore, our monitoring, the framework, this gives us the framework of following the monitoring. If, for example, you are having a filter feeder would be your bivalves or oysters. They filter water when they are feeding to their gut. So for PSP, since your farm is on the west of Cape Point, it's gonna have to test twice a week if they are having multiple harvest. But when you are farming non-filter feeders, like your abalone, it's twice every week if you are on the west of Cape Point. But when you are in the east of Cape Point, you will test your paralytic shellfish poison once a month, even if you are filter feeder or not a filter feeder. So basically, we are guided by the presence of phytoplankton to give us framework for monitoring of the toxicity that is caused by biotoxins. We have our we have in the program, we have a regulatory limit for each of the toxins that are presented above. For example, with paralytic shellfish poison, once the toxin is above 0.8 milligrams per kg, we close the farm. And I will explain more the process of how we conduct that contingency measure. And also with lipophilic toxins, once we exceed that 0.16, we close the farm accordingly. With ASP, we've never closed the farm. Let me just give you I just wish that my graphics were playing very well with my presentation. I don't know, the technology has given me trouble today. So what we usually do, if you are looking up there, once we discover that, okay, your paralytic shellfish poison toxins are above 0.8, so what we will do, we'll close the farm, we'll close the area and say to the farm, you are not allowed to harvest your product and sell it for consumption. Then after that, we tell every stakeholder that we work with, we tell NRCS, Department of Health, municipalities that this particular farm is closed due to paralytic shellfish poison. For you to be able to reopen, you're gonna need to retest the product in 3 consecutive days. For example, let's say we close your farm on Wednesday. Then you're gonna collect your sample on Thursday. It should be negative on Friday, negative. Saturday it should be negative. Then we can open your farm if all those results are below the regulatory limit. Then you can continue with your business as usual. Once we have confirmed that the toxins have moved away. Remember, these biotoxins come to your water surfaces naturally. It's something that happens naturally. So even when they go out of your waters, they will go out naturally. So our scientists have managed to calculate how we can, why we do this, these 3 consecutive tests for the farm to open. We also have microbiological testing, as I mentioned above. We test E. coli. E. coli is a microbiological organism that is found in feces. As you know, your your farm will maybe in an area where there's farming, there's a lot of cows, or there's housing population around, or there are anthropogenic processes that will bring microbiological contamination. And as I mentioned earlier, we use E. coli to indicate the contamination that may, the microbiological contamination. If it's above the 230 grams per 100 grams edible flesh, we close your farm. But with microbiological contamination, your farm may be allowed to operate, but the product will need to be processed before you sell the product. When we close the farm, we close it once. Once the next test is negative, the farm is welcome to operate. And also we have these tests that we do annually. We do annual tests for drug residues. We do annual tests for heavy metals, pesticides. All those tests, they are done annually. Then to make to make monitoring of food safety easy for the farms and anyone who's involved in aquaculture, because food safety is the most important factor when you are in aquaculture, because you're gonna have to sell this product and people have to consume. You would wish that no one would have health problems once they consume your product. So we have action plans that we develop so that the job of monitoring food safety is easier. And also we encourage, especially farms that are using similar waters, to work together in terms of providing the food safety of the product. Let me give you an example for example, with Saldanha Bay. For Saldanha Bay, we have developed two monitoring programs, monitoring action plans. We have a biotoxin action plan and microbiological action plans. Biotoxin and microbiological contamination, we monitor them monthly. So what we've done, we've grouped them. We've grouped them into Small Bay, Big Bay, and North Bay. Let's say there's a case where there is contamination at one of the farms in the Small Bay. What we will do, we will close all these farms, then ask for a test. Once the test shows that the contamination is gone, then we open the farm. The reason we started using these action plans is we found out that in the past we would close the farm. I don't know if you see my cursor there. We will close this farm, but we don't close that farm because the contamination presented itself from the first farm. Then the other farm will have a question mark saying, why are you closing me while you didn't close my next door neighbor? But we are using the same water. So these action plans help us to streamline the monitoring of food safety. So, and also encourage the farms to work together to achieve this. We also do it, for example, in Hermanus area. These are the farms in the Hermanus area. So they have the same intake pipe. So basically whatever contaminates any farm in this area will be the same. So the best thing to do is to have these action plans that will make monitoring very easy for the farm, and to simplify things further, we also have developed standard operating procedures. These standard operating procedures, we usually share them with the farm that is ready to sell its product. For example, the first requirement we have for your farm would be classification of the farm. So we give you an SOP for classification. That SOP is simple than the actual monitoring program. It will give you guidelines, step by steps of what to follow, give you contacts, which labs to test your product with. So that is it for me. Thank you very much. I would just like to apologize. The technology has gave me problems today. I don't know how to solve it, but for the sake of time, I had to present like I did. I hope everything was clear. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maizole. At times, technology is not our friend, and we have to adjust to this new way of life of not having contact meetings and the virtual meeting arena. Thank you very much for that. There's a lot to absorb, especially if you're new to this. Can we have questions from the floor? A few questions. I see, Morena, your hand is up. Is it a legacy hand?
I'd like to ask a few questions, Chair, or comment.
Go for it, Pudi.
Thank you, Mr. Majangaza, for the presentation. And food safety will assist us to grow the sector. However, I would like to believe, or correct me if I'm right, that your program is more focusing on the export market and the marine species. And however, Ms. Zimasa mentioned that, aquaculture was prioritized to assist with food security. And the second comment is, I've been in touch with few retailers here who want to buy my fish, and they wanted me to give them the certificate of acceptability. And I did went to the municipality to assist, and they don't know how does one get the certificate of acceptability for tilapia fish. I would like your directorate as well to do food safety test on tilapia imports from China and our tilapia locally produced, because if we can prove to our customers or clients that our fish healthy and safety to eat, we might gain the market share. For instance, the first time CP mentioned that tilapia in 2017 contributed around 4,000 tons. However, the imports were around 3,000 tons. So it shows that there is a market for tilapia fish in South Africa, and that is mainly consumed or captured by the cheap imports. And if we could, do food safety programs on tilapia, we could prove that Chinese imports, there might not be food safety, and our local produce farms are more safer, and that will improve access to them for market for our local. Thank you.
Thank you, Morena. I think some of the issues that you are raising are trade related. For instance, the issue of imports and food safety and managing that. That is an international trade related matter that the department is engaging with the Tilapia Group, how to protect local markets, which is a general trade challenge in other sectors as well, the issue of cheaper imports and all of that. In terms of food safety and the mandate of food safety that the department has, right now it's for marine products and certain marine products. The assurances that we provide and the food safety that we provide, it is for both the local and the international market. We are not merely servicing exports only. You raised a question about food safety acceptability certificate. I think in my interactions, I've noted that there are certain municipalities that don't know what that certificate is, but it is issued. The smaller local municipalities don't, in some cases, know what it is, but it is issued by the greater district municipality. It is also a under the food, what is it? There's a food office, what is it called? I've forgotten what the formal name is. The health and safety office of municipalities actually issues those certificates. But in your case, I do feel that if you feel that, and in anybody else's case, you are having challenges, please contact the department as well, so that we can see how we can assist you. I see that a comment came through that the tilapia is not trade related sample, the imports. Can you just elaborate what is there on the message? I don't understand, Morena, what you're trying to raise.
Yeah, Ms. Jika, my comment was the comment that I've raised is not trade related, it's more of a food safety. What I would like to request, the Food Safety Directorate is, if it's possible, to have a program where they sample tilapia imports to check if they are healthy for our people to consume them. Thank you.
Thank you, Morena, for that. We will pass the message on. Unfortunately, that does not fall under the mandate that we have right now. We have a legal mandate over marine fish, which is a challenge until the legislation changes. It is difficult to have an impact nor deal with some of the freshwater related issues.
May I add something?
Yes, my.
From Mr. Morena's comment, the main purpose of our program is to ensure that South Africans are safe in terms of food poisoning. So, for example, we are preparing for EU audits. We have to show the auditors that we are able to take care of our local consumers before we can even start exporting the product to them. So basically, the main aim of the program is to take care of our consumers here in South Africa. Then, if we are able to do that, we can take care of the international community. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from the floor? I see no hands from the floor. I would like to thank everybody for participating in today's session. We've had a couple of glitches here and there, including adding people to the. Marizola, can you stop sharing your screen? Adding people to the the various discussions and adding people onto the meeting, but we are definitely going to learn from this experience and improve the way we work going forward. I'd like to thank the organizers for allowing us to actually do this. I think our organization thrives from these opportunities because the more people who get to know about aquaculture, the better the participation and development of the sector will be. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to hear from you. I almost said see you, but hear from you next week. Thank you very much. We will have a folder we will have a folder. I think we transfer. We'll see how we'll share the presentations, as well as the relevant information, the guideline documents, our yearbooks, and other documents that we think will be important for you to just peruse over and see. And I do warn you that these are big documents, hence the use of this we transfer. And apparently it is, I was actually going to close, but the SMME guys are saying that it is Unati's birthday, Unati Sonti, the chairperson's birthday. So they want to sing happy birthday to him. Mr. Mkijima, Lutando, you have suggested that, so you can lead in wishing him happy birthday. Okay, guys, I think the SMME guys are being quiet or being shy, but I just want to extend a message of congratulations and wishing you a very good birthday, Unati. I cannot sing
Thank you,
today.
Chair. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I will sing for you next week when my asthma is not bad, but I can't sing for you today. All the best and God bless.
All right.
Thanks. Sure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the session. Goodbye.